Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Goonerverse. It's the first collab I've done in a really long time. And it's, of course, with... It's Alex. Look at that smile. Look how happy he is to be here.
Yeah. Of course I'm happy. It's you, Jamesy boy. I'm very excited.
Stop it.
Very excited.
It's good to see you, man. It's really, really good to see you. It's good to be doing collab content again. I haven't done it in a while. Good to be back in my room. I haven't been really ever once since Australia.
Have you spoken about your sort of spiritual awakening in Australia on your channel?
No, not quite. But basically, everyone, it's the best place in the world, and if you can go, you should go.
James texts me like 2 days in. You're like, I know everyone says this, and I don't want to be that guy, but it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I hadn't even got to Sydney then. I was still in Melbourne. I was probably still jet lagged and just not really with it. I was probably anyway. Let's not. I'd probably had a beverage, maybe.
Shoot you.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
Maybe one at some point. So bless you're probably getting those at 3 a.m. thinking, James, just. I mean, I get it. It's great, but I'm asleep. So there we go. Let's do some housekeeping really quick before we go into it. This is going to be a really good conversation around Arteta. I say really good. I'm saying it's a good conversation before we've had it. For all I know, it's a terrible one. I'm sure it'll be a good one. I want to, like I said, do a bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, we've been getting comments asking where the Goonerverse podcast is. Obviously, we're sort of running a almost identical thumbnail. So you're probably all thinking this is a return of the Goonerverse podcast. Let me say that first and foremost, it's not. I had sort of spoken to Sharoy about how it could come back, if it should come back, and spoke to others like Max, who does amazing work behind the scenes, Issa, who's part of the team, who's brilliant as well. And we all kind of came to the conclusion that, like, it's not the Goonerverse podcast without Sharoy. He's a massive, massive part of it. I love doing content with him. And for those wondering why we haven't been doing content, we haven't done a podcast since December, to be as frank as I can be, whilst respecting everyone's privacy. The two of us went through a lot actually at the end of 2024, and his sort of stuff happened a month or two after mine, and it's still somewhat of an ongoing situation that he's having to negotiate. Hence, he's not been uploading to his channel either. He's seen your comments. He wanted me to let you all know that he's seen your comments and his videos and stuff, and that he's just really grateful for all the love and support. When he can be back, he will be back, and we will do the Goonerverse podcast with guests in the format that we've been really enjoying doing it. And so it will return. What this is a new idea, which I hope you'll all kind of, indulge me with all my new ideas. We've got the Goonerverse 2, and now we've got this. But this was an idea to basically get people who are, I've used the words passionate and or knowledgeable about a really particular topic. Alex here, me and you are big Arteta fans. He's kind of called that into question kind of more this season. But I'd love to talk to Turkish about the Cronkies. I'd love to talk to a physio about Bukayo Saka's injury return and things like that. Getting people who are really insightful and knowledgeable about very particular things that impact Arsenal and getting that expert insight. So if you have any ideas for names for a particular podcast or show, let us know in the comment section below. But rest assured that Sharoy and I definitely have the intention to be back with the podcast, and that we miss him very dearly. But he's seen all your comments and sends his love and thanks for all that. So just some
shout out to Roy if you're watching. Shout out.
I miss him so much. We'll be back at some point. Needless to say, I'm super excited to do this video with you, man. And housekeeping done. And I hope everyone sort of, doesn't mind that to kind of go through all that. But Mikel Arteta, I mean, the title of this video is, at the time of recording anyway, going to be basically, where are we? Where are we with Mikel? Someone who, I really believed he was going to get us over the line, that this was the guy that was going to deliver all the major honours for Arsenal. At one point, I was extremely sure of that. Where are you, Alex? And I don't know how you can even rank that, but where are you with your kind of feeling of whether this is the guy that can actually deliver the big ones?
The big ones. Yeah, look, to be totally frank, this is the most I've ever doubted him. But how big that is relative in kind of relative scale. I think it's always about, I think football conversations so often, as we know, can become absolutes and can become extremes. And I think in some ways it's just always been the case. It's kind of true in every sphere of anything. It's like, we're not disagreeing. You're lying. You're not, saying a different fact to me. You're being disingenuous. It's all this stuff. And I think it's a way to kind of grab attention, right? So yeah, hopefully we can have a measured conversation. I don't think anyone in the Arsenal fan base is is blind to Mikel's flaws. And I do think this painting of or there's people who can never see what Mikel does wrong, and this painting of the other side of you can never see what Mikel does right. I think we're all kind of somewhere, and it's like trying to work out how to define it. And I guess for me, two things. First and foremost, I think I'm developing a bit of a theory about Mikel's story at Arsenal that I think is beginning to work against him. And I talked about this in a recent video. Arsenal in 22-23 had the 6th highest wage bill. This is from the latest Athletic. So there's I think they got like a new finance writer or something who did like a proper insight into Arsenal's wage bill and where we are and stuff and the Cronkies, and it's really interesting. So go check it out. In 22-23 we had the 6th highest wage bill. In 23-24 we had the 5th highest wage bill. I think we are the 4th most expensively assembled squad in terms of transfer fees paid for each player. And I say that all to say there is a world, I don't agree with this, but there is a world in which you could say, actually, if we're just going off that, Arsenal are overachieving. Because if you're, and I'm not saying this, but I'm just laying out the context.
You're lying and you're disingenuous. And yeah.
So if you thank you. So if you say, right, okay, if you take that viewpoint, okay, wage bills are the way of judging performance. You could take the viewpoint that actually Arsenal have been overperforming. I don't agree with that. I think where we found ourselves is in this story, right? The story of Arsenal is, and Mikel actually spoke to Patrick Davison recently, as far as I see it. He set out on day one with the Cronkies. He said he set out this 5-stage plan, and people can laugh at it, people can do whatever, but put yourself in a situation where you're the coach of a club. A very good way of laying out your plan would be to go, right, I'm going to do a phased integration. Here's what I expect by this phase, that phase, whatever. Yeah. And he laid out a phase, and he's not going to give you exact timelines, but we've got little moments. There was a Jamie Carragher interview, I think, in 2022. Yeah. He said something, I think, April 2023 about phase. He's sort of been dropping little things. I think that's probably right not to go too far into it. And he said in this interview, we're about where he expected us to be. I say all that to make this point. I think this season has been a disappointment, but it's felt like more of a disappointment because I think we peaked a little bit earlier than maybe we all expected from a higher level. I think 22-23, I was expecting us to Champions League, 4th maybe, to do that. We peak very early with the likes of Saliba at 21, 22, with Saka. I think actually all these players are 21. I think Saliba was 21. I think Saka was 21. I think Martinelli was 21. With no Rice, with Xhaka and Partey, probably the only senior players in that team. With Zinchenko, Jesus, finding their form, all those sorts of things. I think really from a high level, before we get into the detail, I think for me the big story of this season is it's based on this story of. I think what we will look back on as a slightly premature high, basically. That 24-25 was that season where we'd had the rise, and then we went, well, it's got to go there, and actually we regressed, and that's really hard. But in the grand scheme of the big picture of Mikel Arteta, I don't think it's going to be catastrophic. That's my overall take, and then we can get into various aspects of it.
Sure. And I hear that, and I agree with a lot of what you say about peaking early in 22-23. I think a lot of people... I don't agree with this, but I think a lot of people, that's definitely the most excited they've ever been by Arsenal, the most entertained they've ever been, the best version of Mikel Arteta was keeping clean sheets, scoring from set pieces, and scoring unbelievable goals, on a regular basis, high tallies and things like that. So I hear all that. I think what I really kind of want to get to the crux to in this video is, while there are things I understand, like the wage situation, the cost of our squad, the fact that we're still set, the injuries, the decisions that have gone against us, maybe he wasn't backed in the window as much as he'd wanted to. I am, though, entering this season, more than any, a stage of doubt of like, yes, but the things I thought you recognise we needed to address, you haven't. and whether that's tactically or whether that's in terms of incomings or whatever. And when I even hearing myself say that sentence, I'm like, James, who the hell are you to say to Mikel Arteta, I thought you'd have learnt this by now. I thought you'd have addressed this by. But I can't help but feel that way a little bit when we still can't break down a mid-block, low block, when we're still kind of playing with only one real natural creator, when we're still playing with, it sometimes feels like the handbrake on. I saw Lewis Skelly, I did a video that went out on the Goonerverse the other day, and I asked, would Arsenal ever score the goal that Lewis Skelly scored for England? Like that left back bombing on and being the data line behind. I don't think we would. Ben White overlaps, but he overlaps to receive a pass. I don't think anyone would ever make that run to get into a goal scoring position. It's things like this, the once again early exits at the Cups. Okay, we got to the Carabao Cup semi-final, but it was just such a shocking display. A lot of the stuff I really hoped he'd learn from, it's not even going from second to first. That is so hard to do. But everything else I thought was a little bit easier to do. He hasn't really delivered on that either. And by the way, I say all this, I'm still a fan. I still actually am leaning more towards he'll get there than he won't. Actually, I'm totally convinced he's going to get there, whether it's with Arsenal or someone else. I think he will lift major trophies as a manager. But in terms of him doing it at Arsenal, this season has cast some real doubt for me, if I'm honest.
I think you've opened up some interesting lanes there. I think let's be really specific about what are Mikel's flaws.
Sure.
And then let's contextualize them. I think it's absolutely fair to say the management of the squad is a big part of the injury crisis this season. I think apart from, I would say, the Ødegaard twisted ankle, the Marino situation with Gabriel, which sounded like an impact one as well, and probably the Jesus one. I think other than that, the problem is with injuries, it's that we're working with such scraps of information. I'm sorry, the amount of hamstring injuries, the amount of calf thing, those sorts of things, they are related to load management. So I think
couldn't agree more.
In a second, we'll get to how much of that it is, and we can have a discussion about that. But Mikel is a part of that. He has to be, in terms of usage of Saka, usage of Havertz. We all saw that clip of Havertz falling over at the end of that Wolves game. That sort of stuff, right? Yeah. So let's just isolate Mikel's part in this for now. There's other aspects to it. I think in terms of tactically, as you mentioned, the inability to, I think since 2023 we've had an issue. So I would say the first real game I went, was that Fulham game at New Year's Eve 2023. I don't think we've sustainably found a new solution to breaking down those types of games. Whether it's you want to look at Newcastle away, whether you want to look at Porto, those games we got through, but we really struggled. Whether it's Villa, we've struggled in those games. And I don't think he's found different solutions. I struggle with Mikel's usage of the wide areas. I don't understand why he can't find dynamic overlaps without a Ben White. You can ask players to do. I always talk about this. Mikel is hell bent on putting players. And people get confused when I say this. I want to be really specific. I don't mean don't put players in comfortable positions. I do mean if Partey's playing at right back, it is unacceptable to just not have one overlap.
Yeah,
it's okay to ask him to do a couple of he's not very comfortable doing that. I don't care.
Yeah,
once or twice a game, you can ask in the right. If the game is absolutely, there's a situation. I broke this down on my channel. Kai Havertz is better dropping and going into feet. Absolutely. There was a moment in, I think it was the Spurs game, the most centre forward of centre forward runs appears, and it's like it's a golden opportunity to just play him through, and he drops into feet.
Yeah.
So there are still moments like that where I go,
Can I add Ødegaard to that? Can I add Ødegaard in transition as well? You know, the famous clip of him against West Ham running away from the space to attack, but probably because instruction has just warped his mind to think, do this.
Absolutely. I have a big issue with us turning, and the numbers show it, us turning high turnovers into shots. That's a big issue for me. Our XG numbers aren't good overall. I think we're 8th in the league. I think defensively there's very little to go on to, but I think sort of in terms of from the middle third to the final third, there's some big coaching questions.
What about recruitment? Where do you stand on recruitment?
He has his part in this, and I have a theory about this as well. I think end of 22-23, I think Mikel looked at his squad and felt we're very talented, but we're physically vulnerable. Yeah. And he fills his squad, and he looks at what's working, Saliba and Gabriel, players like that, and he fills his squad with big boys. Declan Rice, Marino, Kai Havertz, Jurrien Timber, Dooley people, basic people who can build on that success. And I get that because I imagine nearly winning the Premier League in what is that, his third full season in charge against your previous mentor. I think he might have been the
third full, yeah.
Would have been the youngest ever manager or something like that. That must have absolutely killed you. So you never want that to happen again. And you swing that way. And I think it's just gone a little bit too far. So I think he's that in recruitment.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we don't know, but Mikel is involved in the recruitment process. So he has to take his part of the blame in terms of not signing a forward in the year 2024. Unacceptable. Not okay. So I've just gone through for 5-10 minutes, and there'll be people who ignore that and say I never criticise Arteta. But then it's fine. Let's hold that and say, okay, but for example, I might not do my washing up. I'm in my flat, so I'll talk about it. I may not do my washing up. I may have been late with rent a couple of times. I might have left my my clothes in the lounge or something, and it's, or maybe wear my shoes in the house. If my housemate is burning down the house, I don't think those are comparable. Yeah. I have flaws, but how big is it compared to my, the other issues? Sure. And for me, while all those things are true, and Mikel has to take his flack, when we're ranking the issues for Arsenal specifically this season, I can't put the coaching and the issues that I have with Mikel, especially considering how related these are, above things like injuries, above things like the owners, above things like Mohamed Salah having the Ballon d'Or season. And then when you go, okay, well, that's just this season, let's look overall. Well, overall, I still can't put Mikel as problem number one at Arsenal because we've seen a development under his stewardship. So we're looking at this season in isolation. For me, it's just a way bigger factor. Those things are true, but it's just a way bigger factor that he doesn't have Bukayo Saka. He's part of that, but he doesn't have it. Yeah. Mo Salah's putting up the season that he does. We're having the injuries that we have, and So it's about working out how big the problem is, I think.
Yeah, and also trying to proportion the blame is so difficult because, okay, I agree with you, and a lot of people get mad at me and us for saying it because they're like, "You're not a physio. What do you know? Why do you think you know more than the Arsenal medical staff?" But I think a serious muscular injury was coming for Bukayo Saka. Horrible to say. I don't like saying that sentence. The amount of football he was playing, the intensity, and people always go off minutes. Well, his minutes are compared to Haaland. Look at the sprints back he does. Look at every time Saka's sprinting back to track a runner. Look at the amount of times Raya pings the ball out to his side and he's jumping for headers. Look how many times he's taking corners and set pieces. That's every kick of a ball, every flex of a muscle. I just felt like, forget the load in terms of playing time, which people can pull up the minute. I think the responsibility we put on him, the amount we asked to do with him, it was coming, right? But I also acknowledge there must be a physio team, a medical team, that I don't think there's people at London Colney going, Mikel, he's not just in the red zone, he's in the triple red. Do not play him. And he's going, he's fine, I'm playing him. Obviously, there'll be some data to suggest this guy's a fitness freak. He's doing really well. He looks fit. He's good. I just think we also, from a tactical perspective, needed to develop a way to play without Bukayo Saka all the time, like Man City have done over the years. So anyway, that's just one element where, like, even though I kind of proportion some blame to him, I acknowledge that there must be so much more to it. Now, the recruitment one is interesting. The reason I asked about this was because I don't think it's that acceptable for your forward additions to have been Trossard 2 years ago, Vieira 2 years ago, Havertz a year ago, Jesus 2 and a bit years ago. They all came for what, 45, 65, 35, 25 million. And basically, we don't want any of them come next season. Okay, Havertz we do as a squad player and has done better than we all expected, but basically, like, none of them are up to scratch, maybe 2 years on. And maybe that's just how the cookie crumbles. Maybe that's just football. But the recruitment side is interesting because now Berta's come in. While I say all that, I also don't know how much of it was necessarily on Arteta because there's Edu, there's all these other people with their financial restrictions. Did he want a £50 million number 10? But the budgets, the Cronkies, the board said, well, no, you're going to have to get Vieira, who's your third choice, because you've only really got 35 million to go to this position. So there's like all these things that are so difficult. But Berta may help us understand that a little bit more if we see like a significant difference in the way the recruitment happens this summer.
I think he might, and I think this is maybe where into the future. But just to go back on one of your points, I think, look, if Arsenal lift a trophy, okay, who is the man responsible for the Invincibles? One person.
Well, Arsene Wenger, they'd say.
Right. So you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He wasn't on the pitch scoring the goals. He wasn't in the medical team. He was one person. I'm in no way downplaying his influence here. Please hear me, people. What I'm saying is, was Arsene Wenger one of the 11 players on the pitch? No. So there was other people involved, right? There was other people involved. And ultimately, this is football management. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. You are seen as more responsible for things that you probably aren't responsible for. And that works both ways. That's good and bad, right? And I think so therefore I'm not sat here, and I won't spend loads of time, defending Mikel, because I'd also be the guy praising Mikel if everything was going right, and that wouldn't all be on him either. It's just football management, football punditry, right? But I think you raised an interesting point about Berta, which is that, for example, on the physio thing. Ultimately, it's about how you react. And I believe I look at a team that has developed tactically, technically, physically, recruitment-wise, has predicted the trends of football, has built one of the best defenses in the world, has issues, and I think he's the only guy to ever get 89 points or more in the Premier League and not win it.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, if I was to build like a load of predictors for the guy who would go and do it, or the guy who I should give the opportunity to go and fix the problems that he has, Mikel for me has not only earned it, he has earned the chance next season to go, okay, these mistakes have been made, this thing's happened, but you deserve a chance to go and right those wrongs. You deserve a chance to go and show me how you're going to beat these Villas and Newcastles and those sorts of teams. You deserve a chance to show me how you're going to manage Bukayo Saka differently next season. You deserve a chance with a new sporting director to show me, combined with someone who's a bit more aggressive in the market, because I know you had a say on this, Mikel, and I'm sure you had a big say on it, frankly, how you two are going to work together to get the squad that you need and readdress the balance in the squad. He absolutely deserves that chance. What I've said, and I'm interested in what you feel. If we're sat here next year with a fair crack at the whip in terms of injuries, with what I feel is significant investment in the forward areas, with what I feel is games that, like the variances, and we can use this season as a yardstick, the variance of game, like how many late winners we had ruled out. It feels like loads of things go against us. If next year that yardstick is there and we don't perform, Mikel rockets right up my list of places to look at. He rockets right up, absolutely. But I go back to it. I don't see. You can have Mikel in your list of issues this season. You should, but I don't see in this season isolated how you can have him above Mo Salah giving us the Ballon d'Or year. I don't see how you can have him above Edu leaving halfway through this season. I don't see how you can have him above begging for signings in January and supposedly the Kroenke's not going for Ollie Watkins. I don't see how you can have some issues in tactically or maybe whatever above all these factors. I find that hard.
Injuries, ridiculous red cards and things like that.
I haven't mentioned red cards. So yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think 3 out of the 4 we've had have been shambolic. How many have we had? 4 or 5?
5. Well, let's just take the red cards. Okay,
3. I agree. 3 were ridiculous. Yeah.
The Trossard one is absurd, and we've not seen it since. The Rice, and at the time I was kind of defending it because I was kind of going like, okay, well, if this is the directive, then fine. But we haven't seen it since, so it's completely unacceptable.
But we knew we wouldn't. That's why I was so furious, because I was like, this isn't going to happen to anyone else.
So the Trossard one, that's 2 points, probably. Let's build this world just on the red card.
Let's be. Everyone always tells me, James, be realistic. I'll be realistic. We beat Brighton without the red. We beat Man City without the red.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's 4 points. Then what were the other reds?
Bournemouth were definitely a red card. But for me, also, like, I've seen a few similar they haven't given, but I'm not going to argue on that one. I think it should be a red. They gave it. Look, I think at best we get a point, but we were really bad that day, so we might have lost.
Sure. So let's say that we don't get anything in there. So we've got 4 points so far, 4 extra points. What was the other one? The
Wolves, which we won. We won at Wolves.
Wolves, we did win that one, and the Miles one. The Miles one probably was a okay. So let's say we get 4 points out of that. We are 8 points behind Liverpool. We're gonna go to them. How much is a Bukayo Saka worth in terms of points? How much is Gabriel Martinelli worth in terms of points? Martinelli goes. So already, even before we get to Mikel, how much closer are we already before we get to that? And you can play those games, and look, people won't like those games because they'll go, "Well, it doesn't matter. It's just what it is." But
right, and then you'll go, "Well, what points have Liverpool not got because of whatever's gone against them?" And yeah, absolutely.
But my point is this idea that we're a million miles away, rather than not good enough, but a couple of points behind, and we need to move. I think people look at the points tallies, don't remember all the things that have happened, and go, "We're just a million miles away." We're actually not. If you include all those factors, the Salah season, the Saka injury, you go through the red cards. Is that really not 6 or 7 or 8 points, and then we're already there?
No, but I agree with you. I think we saw that in the head-to-head with Liverpool at the Emirates. I thought we were by far the better team in that game. Yeah. I thought we totally nullified their threat. It took for Lewis Skelly to play like his second, third ever game, and Kivior to come on, and we had a decimated back four, White playing centre-back for the first time in 2 years, Partey right back, and they pulled out an equaliser, and even then, I think they were quite harsh to rule out our late one. They blew the whistle quite soon, and like things like that. Look, okay. I think for 15 minutes, let's call it real Arteta doubters would have watched this and gone, "Oh, fair play. There's quite a lot of accountability here." Last 5-10 minutes has probably been us plucking more kind of other reasons and stuff, but they're important. When we're asking the question, which is going to be slapped as the title of this podcast, this video, whatever this is, are we still all in with Mikel? We need to look at everything that did go against us, as well as everything that he's at fault for. Now, what the reason I've worded it as all in is the Berta appointment. And my word, we could do another hour on this. So I'll try to keep it brief from my side. But like with the Berta appointment, for me, felt like the club doing what was best for the club and not necessarily what was best for Mikel. And I really like that. Now, it might be what's best for Mikel. I mean, maybe both are the same thing, but it just felt to me more like, if I'm all in with Arsenal on this project, it's felt for the last year or two that it lives and dies by Arteta, but I never feel like it should. I feel like if Arteta's not the guy, then you get Iraola, you get Enrique, and then they take it up a level. And Berta feels like he could be a constant because he has been that Atletico Madrid. Now, we don't know. Maybe it doesn't translate the same way. Maybe he's not very good. Maybe he's amazing. I don't know. But that appointment felt like the first little thing from Arsenal that felt like we're not just doing it all Arteta way. All we've ever heard was, "Oh, the people upstairs like Ramsdale and don't know why we spent 30 million on Raya, but Arteta wanted him, so they got him." A lot of people didn't feel we needed a new left back, but Arteta really wanted Calafiori, so we got him. And there's just been lots of briefings and ITKs, whatever it is, almost giving that impression that it's the Arteta way, which is great if he is a footballing genius, which I think he is in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I quite liked seeing the club do something that to me felt like it wasn't all in on Mikel's way.
Yeah, I think this is ultimately down to the way you see the manager. If you have doubts about if let's say you are all in, and to use the terminology, you're all in on Mikel, you'll probably say, "Oh, great, Berta's going to come in and support Mikel because he needs the support." Sure. If you're not in on Mikel, you'll say, they've done the Berta thing to go and challenge him because they know he's got too much power. It just depends what you feel.
Sure.
Look, I think ultimately, I'm a big supporter of Mikel, but it's not Mikel over Arsenal.
Of course.
I am looking at someone and I'm asking, are you our number one problem? Are you net positive for us? Are you someone who's going to help Arsenal win? I think people get attached to, as we've spoken about before, people get attached to players, and I would sell everyone at the club to win something. We've got to win something. So this is in no way a justification of Mikel, but I think that like the Berta thing is maybe an indication that there are other people at the club who are aware we need to win now. It's not just Mikel. It's not just the fans. I think there is this sort of maybe a perception from the outside that we have this sort of what's the word? Just because someone is quiet basically in the Cronkies.
Passive?
Okay, well, yeah, they're passive. Yeah, the idea that they're okay. Well, they can't see our issues, can they? Come on, guys. Come on.
Sure.
Also, I think I mentioned this article earlier about the Cronkies, and there'll be people who don't like the Cronkies, and that's absolutely fair enough. I also think we can't. It's very difficult to judge managers and players and whatever. You judge a player basically by their comparison. Well, he scored more goals than him. Okay, so you can't judge them in isolation. You have to judge them by he scored, Mo Salah scored this amount of goals compared to this thing. You are always, with every part of football, judging sort of across, and you're even without maybe knowing it consciously, that you have a frame of reference somewhere. So what's a fair frame of reference for Mikel? Other Big Six managers. How's Ange doing? How's Amorim doing? How's Pep doing?
Yeah.
How's Maresca doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then you could go, well, they've had more.
How won a trophy? Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure. But my point is, when we compare him to, it's not like he's a million miles back.
No,
you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I would say that in this isolated season, there's probably two managers if you wanted to talk about how, but just in terms of league position, Slot's done better than him, obviously. And then the Cronkies, you have the Chelsea manager. Chelsea's Egbali, I don't know what his job title is, saying on a panel openly in public, we're just trying to make money off the transfer market. Liverpool, look at their transfer record and speak to any Liverpool fan about FSG and they'll moan forever. Man City might get relegated from the league. Tottenham, like you go through it. I'm not suggesting that the Cronkies or Arteta or anyone is perfect, but I think what we sometimes do as Arsenal fans is we get so isolationist and we get so, well, he's not doing the thing I need them to do. Well, is anyone else getting it? In the same way that, if you knew everyone on your row was getting a kitchen renovation and you weren't getting one, that would annoy you. But if you found out you were getting a bit of a rubbish one, but actually no one else had one, you'd be happier about it. So it's all relative. And that's not to say that you shouldn't try and isolate and recontextualize and stuff, but it's got to be a symbiotic process where you're going, okay, I'm looking around. That's what Iraola's doing. That's what he's doing. But what are we doing? But is that fair enough? And if you come through that process, and I'm not in any way suggesting Arteta is faultless at all. He has a lot to answer for this season, as we spoke about earlier. But if you come through that process and you're like, he's performing worse than all the Big Six managers, he's had favourable conditions, he's not shown any ability to develop the team, he's not shown any ability to develop himself, he's not improved as in the cup competitions in getting from the sort of Europa League to the Champions League, etc., stuff like that. If that's your answer, I'm okay. I can't help you. Do you know what I mean? I think he deserves time. Is basically what I'm saying.
Fair enough. So to sort of answer the question that we've sort of been, breaking down in this last 25 minutes or so, are we still all in with Mikel? I think the club definitely are. Whether I think the Berta appointment is a step in a different direction or a different outlook or a different voice, I think it is, but I also think that's a good thing. I think it supports Mikel. I think that the club are absolutely behind him. Are you still all in is my first question. And my second question is, do you think he's going to lift the major honours at Arsenal?
It's difficult to answer the first question because I'm all in on someone winning the league for Arsenal. It's not about, and it is not in your question, but, Arteta in Arteta. It's such a dichotomy I hate. I'm asking, is this the manager who I believe can win us something? And I have way fewer doubts than any other aspect of as I've laid out. There's way bigger issues before I come to him. Does that mean we should keep him? Well, I think he deserves. I think what he's shown deserves that he has a chance to turn this around. And the context that we've explored. And I think in terms of to answer so I'm all in, I suppose, but I'm looking in the same way I'm committed to this guy and I'm saying, yep, show me what you can do. But I'm not blind. I'm not sat here saying you've got forever, you've got keys to the club. No, you need to deliver. If I see those other things that I've given you grace for, the unfavourable conditions, the lack of investment, the injuries, the red cards, whatever, just in this season, if I see those change, it's only fair for me to look at you then, because I'd also be looking at you if you won. So I have to look at you. And in terms of do I think he'll win the major trophies? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And James, you said it earlier. If he doesn't win it here, the bloke's 43. I think it's his birthday today as we're recording. Happy birthday, Mikel.
I think it is.
He's 43. He's already been one kick away from winning a Premier League title.
Yeah.
The idea this guy won't win major trophies somewhere. He's one of the only managers ever to get the points tallies he did in the Premier League. He's got like the 5th highest wins, considering where Arsenal came from, was like the 5th highest wins in his first 200 games as a Premier League manager.
Most goals ever in a Premier League season as well. Yeah, he's hit numbers.
He's hit those numbers. So it's a separate question to, does it work at Arsenal or whatever? But is this a good manager? You bet it is.
Yeah.
So this guy, I think maybe I'll finish with this. Be honest. I don't think even the biggest Arteta hater, the biggest watching this, and I don't know how you got through this, but if you have, if he left Arsenal tomorrow, every single club in world football would consider him for the next managerial position. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, every single club in world football would consider him.
I think so too. I think they would consider him is the word. I think hire him tomorrow. I don't know about that, but consider him. Yeah, I think absolutely. So yeah, I hear you, man. And look, I just want to say a big thank you for joining me to break this all down, because I think it's been a while since we've had the bigger, wider chat around Arteta. We certainly were kind of earlier in the season when things were sort of starting to go wrong a bit. But yeah, it's just interesting kind of take stock of where we are with it all, especially as we enter a weirdly quiet 2 months compared to what we've had in the last 2 seasons. But the small matter of Real Madrid is around the corner. So yeah, hope you all enjoy this, everyone. Alex, a big thank you. Of course, you can find Alex on The Different Knock, literally my favourite Arsenal YouTube channel. And of course, the Canon podcast as well, with Rohan and George as well. Regular content coming out all the time. Go check that out. And everyone, you know who we are, the Goonerverse. We're here. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you missed the start of the pod, because maybe you just skipped to the chat or whatever, I do encourage you to go listen to it, where I just sort of explain everything around the Goonerverse podcast. So go check that out. And for anyone still wondering why on earth I've gone to the effort of making a second channel, it's just for instant reaction stuff. Sometimes there's news, there's rumours, there's reports. You're all going crazy online about things, and I just like to throw out a quick opinion on it. But Alex, a big thanks, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Thanks as always for having me.